Which car brands have the best build quality? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, and I'm here with David from Automotive Press, who is an engineer and has visited pretty much every major car factory in the world. So I don't think there's anyone who knows more about car manufacturing than David. David, we're doing another video.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's super fun to do this, and thanks for inviting me. And yeah, you lead the way, and then hopefully I can hopefully I can shed some insight into stuff that to do with manufacturing.
So a little while ago, I made a video ranking most major car brands in terms of their build quality and reliability on a tier list. So now that I've gone through the list, I think it's time to get your opinion and see how yours differs from mine. So let's get right into it.
Perfect. Let's go.
So David, I think a good place for us to start would be the Japanese brand. So let's begin with Toyota. So on a tier list, with S being the highest, where would you put Toyota on the tier list for manufacturing, engineering, and your predicted reliability?
Okay, so this is so S is like super good.
Super good, the top.
And then A, B, C, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously there are many different factors affecting reliability, manufacturing quality, build quality, fit and finish, that kind of stuff. So with Toyota, I mean, they have a really interesting situation because their new product introduction, we call it NPI, is obviously one of the best in the world. They have a really robust system. They use a concept called the chief engineer, which is there's one person in charge of everything from beginning to the end, like a life cycle. And they have a very robust NPI system that probably no one can quite replicate right now. That takes into account quality, cost, everything. But at the same time, it doesn't always translate into perfect manufacturing build because there are many different factors such as suppliers, input, and also just other things that sometimes we don't take into account, especially during COVID time. There was many different factors that came in. So the situation is that for NPI, I would give it S, like a product development. Toyota is clearly the best in the world for that. They know how to design a product, they know how to do it cost effectively, and they know how to do it in a timely fashion. And they have a lot of engineers to back all that up. In manufacturing, normally I would have given like S, but recently, as you know, there's been some surprise issues and recalls, particularly the Tundra, not Sequoia, but Tundra and the GX engine recall for the 3.4 liter V6. And those things surprised me. And also Tacoma had some issues when it first came out, although a lot of that has been resolved. So I have to give a slightly lower score. So maybe for manufacturing quality, I think they're still one of the best in the world. So I would give it A- for now, right now. But I think in a couple of years, once they get all that sorted out, they could come back to being the super good one as S. So, but if you were to ask me right now, I would say it's S for product engineering, but maybe A- for manufacturing quality. And then hopefully in a couple of years, they'll come back to being either S or A.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Okay, I think that's actually pretty fair. When I did my own video on this topic, I put Toyota in S tier at the top.
Okay.
Although I was debating whether to move them down to A because, like you said, they have had some issues with the Toyota Tundra, the V6 engines, and that has affected their reputation. But that still represents a really small piece of Toyota's total lineup.
Yeah.
So, and the rest of their lineup is still very solid. So I was okay putting them in S tier, although it's kind of borderline between A and S. So,
right. Okay.
All right, that's fair.
We're pretty close.
Let's move on to the next Japanese brand. Let's go with Honda. Where are you going to put Honda on the list?
Right. So Honda is interesting because most people think of Honda at the same level as Toyota, but Toyota is substantially bigger than Honda. Like if you go to the head office in Japan. So in Japan, Honda is not a niche player, but the scale is very different. So their engineering capability, which is world class, has a very different vibe to it. For Honda, like a lot of cars that we buy in North America are actually engineered and manufactured in the US or Canada, versus Toyota, where many cars still come from Japan, and also the engineering capability came from Japan. So for that reason, they have a really robust product development as well, but it's not as capable as Toyota, which is why it takes a long time for them to come up with a new product. And so that I would say NPI product engineering would be like A-, only because they're really strapped for resources. If they had twice the engineer, they would be super good as well. But manufacturing is really solid. I think they're their U.S. and Canadian plant has a really good quality, and also really good long-term reliability. So I would give it a solid A, maybe even an A plus. So it's kind of somewhere between S and A.
Okay.
For Honda's manufacturing capability. I mean, their U.S. manufacturing, Canadian manufacturing, Japanese ones are about the same in the case of a Honda, which is not always the case with other manufacturers.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Yeah, I think when I did my list too, I also put Honda in A tier.
Okay.
They're very good. I mean, they're not quite at the level of Toyota. I mean, you do hear more reliability concerns, especially on some of their powertrains, the 1.5 turbo, the V6 engine. So, yeah, they're not quite up there at the very top, but Honda's still Honda. I mean, they're still pretty good.
It's pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, so that's fair.
So I would say the manufacturing is about the same with Toyota right now. So if I say A minus earlier, but for Toyota, maybe let's say, I would say they're both about A. So
Okay.
I'm kind of changing a little bit number.
Now, what about Mazda, the company that's up and coming, really improved a lot over the last decade or so? Where would you put Mazda today on the tier list?
Yes, yeah. So the interesting thing is, well, first of all, we're inside the new CX-5.
Right.
So this is Mazda. And I did a full audit of the exterior quality. And I have been doing that for a while with all their products. And then I've been to the Mazda factories quite a bit. Like in the last 3 years, I went there about 6 or 7 times. And first of all, so let's just put aside the new product introduction for a moment. If you look at the manufacturing, their capability is actually one of the best in the world. Their system, the process, the equipment, and design is unlike any other manufacturing that Toyota or Honda have, because Toyota and Honda have a benefit of a high volume production. So their equipment is designed to pump out a lot of cars. Mazda can't do that. They only have 2 factories in Japan and none in the US, none in Canada. They have one in Mexico, as you probably know.
Right.
So that means that one factory has to be able to produce multiple different products in the same line. And that flexibility is something that they had to really work on. So their like a sheer manufacturing capability and engineering capability is probably the best in the world. Like I would give it S for super good.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that always translates to long-term reliability, because on the engineering side, just like Honda, Mazda being a niche player, they don't have as much resources and as many engineers working on the project as others. So that means they're going to be a little bit spread thin, and they will have to work on multiple products at the same time. And that shows up a little bit because, you know, their cars are really well built. Like the quality is really good, but not always translating into world-class long-term reliability, which I think will change as time goes. So CX-70, CX-90, if you look at the quality of the exterior and the plastic materials inside, it's the best in the world. But not quite there yet in terms of long-term reliability.
Right.
But I assume in a couple of years it will get there, because they'll figure that out.
Yeah.
So to come back to scoring, I think their engineering is, let's say, A minus, okay? Only because of resources on the product side, but on the manufacturing side, I'm gonna give them a S for super good.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because of their capability, and I know the reliability reports do not reflect that yet, but it will in a couple of years. I'm very sure about that.
So Mazda's getting up there. It's
Getting
among the
up
very
there,
best.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Impressive.
in terms of just a pure manufacturing capability, and their engineering process is like second to none.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? On my tier list, I put them at A. So, and yeah, you're right. They're getting very close to S.
Very close,
Mazda's,
yeah.
that's an up and comer. Okay. Now moving on to, let's get through the remaining Japanese brands quickly. Let's go
Okay.
for Subaru.
Okay, Subaru. Well, most people know that Subaru is owned partly by Toyota, 20% owned, but it wasn't until the last few years that they've collaborated a lot more. So of course, originally they had the Subaru BRZ and the GR86, but now they have so many models that's interfacing with each other, and because of that, a lot of the influence of Toyota's engineering have carried over to Subaru. So they've gotten really good over the last few years, and you can see that in the reliability records, and engineering as well. But again, just like Honda and Mazda, it's not a big company, so they're gonna have to borrow capability from Toyota. So I would give product development solid A, maybe A minus, because it's taking them a long time to develop something on their own. They have to really rely a lot on Toyota to co-develop things. So let's say A to A minus. And then the manufacturing capability and the quality has been really good. It's being very reliable as well. So I would give it a solid I would probably give S also.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I
Because
put
they're really reliable.
they
the
are
Subaru
they are
products.
reliable. I put them on A tier for my list. And again, it's one of those brands where it's kind of hovering between A and S,
Right,
depending
yeah.
on the model. Subaru is fantastic. So, and we should also mention that all of the brands you mentioned so far we discussed, they all follow that Kaizen philosophy of making small gradual improvements over time. They don't take major risks. They don't introduce a brand new engine every couple of years. And they stick with what's well proven and what works and what's reliable. So that's
Right.
why these brands are at the top.
Yeah, I mean, tried and true, right?
Tried and
they,
true.
They don't introduce too many new engines. And even the new engines are actually developed from the old engines, right? So it's not like all new from scratch. There are some new ones coming out from Toyota, but yeah.
So we're going to get to the Korean brands, but first
Okay.
let's finish off the Japanese brands with Nissan, Mitsubishi. We'll put them together. So
Sure.
where would you put them on the tier list?
Well, Nissan and Mitsubishi are part of the, their alliance group, they call it, with Renault. Although they've become more independent now, but still they co-share a lot of things. So some products are identical between the two, just manufactured in different places. I mean, Nissan is a struggle, right? Like their manufacturing capability is actually quite good, but it's not reflecting in terms of long-term reliability, except for the products that are proven already, like a Nissan Frontier and some of the older models are actually quite reliable. But their new product introductions are a bit slower now. Like they're just struggling, for financial reasons, which means they can't put all the money and resources into new cars. So I'm gonna have to give like a B for new product introduction. It's not bad. They're actually quite capable. They just don't have the finance, right?
Right.
And the resources. And the manufacturing, I don't know what to say, because if you look at some of the proven models, they're actually really well made. And I've been to the Nissan factory in Kyushu, Japan, which is where the Armada and Rogue are produced, and they're actually quite capable. But it's not translating into long-term reliability for all of their products. Some of them are okay, so I'll have to give like probably a B. I would say a B.
yeah.
It's actually above average. I know most people don't think that way, but it is still above average in my eyes.
Right.
So yeah, and then Mitsubishi is very similar, but I feel like their engineering group is better. I feel like they spend more time getting it right. I met a number of chief engineers, and they really are quite passionate about their product. So I'm gonna have to give B plus for engineering. They're a small company, right?
Right.
So they can't compete with the big ones. And their manufacturing capability, manufacturing predicted reliability, it's better than Nissan, but maybe not a huge difference. So I would call that B plus, maybe A minus. Let's call it give them a benefit of doubt because it's been quite reliable.
Okay.
The Outlander has been, and the Eclipse and the other ones, because they haven't changed for a long time, they're actually quite trouble free.
Right.
So I'll give it an A minus.
Okay. All right. That's fair. I think I put both brands at a B because they are kind of somewhat in the same league, but okay, let's take it. Now, the other brands that I personally put at B tier for my tier list were the Korean brands, Hyundai and Kia. And the reason I did that is because in the past they did have a lot of reliability problems with their engines. They were known for engine failures, oil consumption, all of that. In the last 4 or 5 years, now that they've moved away from those problematic Theta engines and now they have their new SmartStream engine technology, I have noticed that they have improved a little bit. So I felt, B tier for the Korean brands is pretty fair. They're not among the very best, the Japanese brands, but they're getting up there. So what do you think?
Yeah, so I think most people don't realize that sometimes it's not so much about the brand, but it's to do with the life cycle. So if a product came out 4 years ago and they had a facelift and they fixed all the little problems, it tends to be pretty reliable. But if the model is only 1 year old or even a second year, potentially there's a problem. And something like a Toyota or Honda might be able to handle that a little bit better. But I think the Koreans are not quite as good when it comes to brand new models. They struggle for the first couple of years, and then they become pretty reliable. If you look at all the data, 3 or 4 year Hyundais and Kias and Genesis are actually pretty good once they get the bugs out. So what does that mean? But their engineering capability is pretty impressive because they've hired all the top engineers from other car companies, and they hired them away, and they're working for the Hyundai group. So for engineering capability, they're quite innovative. So I would give it a solid A for engineering side, not like a product development side.
Right.
they're really fast, almost like a Chinese company, right? Their turnarounds are really fast. They keep pumping out new products all the time. Manufacturing and predicted long-term reliability, I'm gonna still have to give it like a B, because it's still a little bit unpredictable, like you said, you know. So it's, I would say, about the same level at Nissan and Mitsubishi.
Right, right. Yeah, that sounds fair.
But they've gotten so much better than before. That's the main thing.
Yeah, they are. So we have to wait and see how they're going to do over the next few years. They could continue to move up, but yeah, B tier sounds fair for that one. Okay, now let's move on to a completely different part of the world. The European brands such as Mercedes, Audi, Volkswagen, BMW. We could lump them together or we could separate them depending on how you feel. Personally, I did separate them a bit. I felt that among the German brands, BMW is a little bit ahead of the others because they have been using the same drivetrains for some time and they seem to have figured out a lot of the issues. And then Audi, Volkswagen, Mercedes, I put in the C tier range.
Okay, I see.
So BMW is a little bit ahead of them, maybe B tier, but the other German brands, they're kind of C tier because they're so unpredictable. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not. They do have reliability issues. They are expensive to repair.
Yes. Yeah,
so I felt C tier makes sense. What do you think?
Right. So, I mean, if I were to just quickly cover off the different brands on the German side, I agree with you that BMW is probably the best among all of them. Well, actually, that's not true. The Porsche is better than BMW.
Porsche, yes. I should have mentioned that.
But if you just look at the mainstream affordable models, BMW is actually quite good. Their product development is actually quite good. Manufacturing is pretty good. But the problem is that they make cars all around the globe, and some factories not as good. So the American factories, they have a factory in South Carolina for a while now, and I've been to that factory. It's state of the art, but they struggle with long-term reliability there. Although the X3s have gotten really good. So I would say I would give a B for manufacturing capability. And then for engineering, I would give a B plus because they have actually pretty good engineering group.
Just BMW?
So, just BMW right now.
Okay.
And then I'll put the Audi and Volkswagen together because they share so many of the same components. And in fact, some Audis are produced in Volkswagen factories. And I would say the product development used to be actually really quite solid, but not lately. I'm going to have to give it like a C plus for product development. I don't know what happened there, but they used to make some of the coolest cars and some great innovation, but lately not so much. They're messing up a little bit. I might say that's B minus depending on which model you look at, but generally speaking C plus. And this is coming from a guy who owned many Audis. I owned many Audi products before. So Volkswagen, Audi about the same, but Porsche, which is also Volkswagen Group, has tremendous manufacturing and engineering capability. They're hampered a little bit by the Volkswagen company as a parent, but their manufacturing capability and long-term reliability almost as good as Toyota and Honda. So I would say the engineering, let's say B, B plus maybe at the most, but the manufacturing, I'm going to give it an A.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really reliable. Mercedes is a little bit below BMW, maybe around the same as Volkswagen. Let's call it C plus. Actually, their engineering is pretty good. They have a really robust engineering and they have quite an innovative group there. So let's give it a B plus for engineering, the product development side. But manufacturing is hit and miss with Mercedes. Lately not so good, so I would give it C plus.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's more or less where I put them at. So yeah, that's kind of what you get with, you know, European cars. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not. They're just not, they don't have that consistency of the Japanese brands, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So finally, let's move on to the American domestic automakers, Ford, GM, Stellantis, and maybe Tesla as well. So those ones, again, personally, based on what I've seen, based on reliability, feedback, they always seem to be in that C tier, sometimes even D tier range because the reliability is pretty inconsistent. Some of their products can be problematic, especially with Stellantis, General Motors.
Right.
Ford is a little bit better, I find, especially because they continue to use, you know, some traditional powertrains like the V8. Their hybrids are okay. So Ford, I put in C tier.
Okay.
GM, Stellantis, honestly, I think they're almost at D tier. just because, you know, they
So
really
many
can't get
problems.
their act together. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts
Okay.
on these
Yeah, I mean,
automakers?
it's a tricky one because it depends a lot again on the product, right?
Sure.
So some of their products are actually quite reliable and some are not. And
Right.
so you lump them together and try to average it out. It's a little bit tricky.
Right.
But I would say maybe partly because I used to work for GM way many years ago. The engineering capability at General Motors is actually quite good. They were really very talented, smart people there,
Mm.
and they're quite innovative in many ways. You know, think of like a new Corvette. You know, they've done something amazing. Not the manufacturing quality per se, but just the innovation
Right.
side. So I would give a B plus for engineering. They have a solid engineering for a new product development, and they're quite innovative. But manufacturing, like you said, you know, with all those recalls, again, it's down to C plus. You know, maybe C plus. Some models some models are quite good, maybe B minus, but on average it would be a C plus just because there's so many recalls,
Right.
and they need to get those things sorted out. And it's a little bit unfortunate because before this big recall with the V8, they were actually quite reliable.
Right.
You know, the trucks were actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's GM. Ford is I don't really know that the Ford is that much better or worse than GM, to be honest. I put them about the same. The reliability data and the record shows they're about the same. Again, it's all over the place depending on which product you're looking at. Their engineering is, I think, a little bit different from GM's approach. So I would give it a kind of B minus for their engineering. Although, you know, they came up the Ford Bronco and some cool product as well. But when the Bronco came out, there was so much problem, right? They never
Yeah.
really took the engineering to the mature level, and which is what Toyota does. So B minus for engineering and manufacturing capability. I think it's about the same as GM. I really cannot say it's any better. So
C?
C plus.
C plus?
Yeah.
Okay.
But some products are pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what about Stellantis? Because that's the
Oh
one
boy,
that's
that's tricky.
I really,
Yeah.
honestly, I truly believe they are at a D tier level right now just because they have so many issues at the moment. They have a lot of manufacturing problems. Reliability, they tend to score very low on most surveys.
Right.
So they're not in a great place right now.
No. So again, Stellantis consists of many different brands, right?
Right.
So if you look at Alfa Romeo, it's not even a D, it's probably F. You know, I love their products; they're fun to drive, but it's really terribly made, and so are the Fiats. You know, but if you look at mainstream model, not the new Jeeps because they just came out, but if you just look at like a Wrangler, which has been around for a while, it's actually not too bad, you know, for quality. So I would say for Stellantis, if you lump everything together, all the brands, which is tricky, I would say their engineering is, let's say, C plus.
Okay.
Depending on the brand, though, like some of the, like a Jeep, I would give it a B. You see, they're
Right.
quite innovative and the engineering is quite strong. But manufacturing, yeah, I would have to agree that as a whole, right now, it's probably a D. I might be generous to say C minus.
Right.
Because some of their products are okay, like again, long-term product that haven't changed. For like a Ram,
Right.
has been pretty reasonable, you know. So I might say C minus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
but they need to improve. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Now, we can't finish without at least touching on Tesla.
Oh my goodness.
Because,
yeah.
you know, it's a popular brand.
Yes, yeah.
People are wondering, where is Tesla in all of this? Personally, I think Tesla is probably the best of the American automakers just because the Model 3, the Model Y are actually pretty solid now. They've been making them a long time.
Right.
So I would probably put Tesla somewhere between C and B, maybe a solid B actually,
B?
for those two cars.
Right, right. So when it comes to engineering for Tesla on the product side, they're unlike any other company in the world, right? Never mind the American models. They use the kind of system or process called agile manufacturing, agile thinking, which is what we call which is like a trial and error. So you make something, and if it's not quite right, then you fix it and try again. So kind of we call it iteration process. They use that process, which is not what most legacy manufacturers do. And so that means that it's like a Apple product. When it first comes out, there's full bugs, and then they sort it out over time. But they are quick to introduce new models because of that.
Right.
Because they can take chance. So engineering, I'm not. Well, on the other hand, their innovation is ridiculously good because, you know, the megacast technology, which is putting all the small parts together in the front and back, they came up with it, and now Toyota is trying to create that and copy it, not copy it, but learn from it. And Tesla is the first one to do it. They really streamlined the whole manufacturing process. So I would say their engineering is pretty solid. I would say B plus. I would agree.
Okay.
Very good engineering process, but the manufacturing, I know lately it's been much better. But if I look at the gaps and the quality control and the fit and finish is not very good. It was really bad a few years ago. It's gotten much better. I still don't think it's all that great. I would give it a B minus at best, maybe even C plus, because of the overall fit and finish. Inside, you can kind of touch the materials. Like if you look at Cybertruck,
Yeah.
it's like a prototype.
Right.
Right. So the Model 3 and Ys are probably pretty decent. Might even give a B plus on those. But if you include Cybertruck, then it's horribly made, and engineering is really poor. You can cut your finger on so many of the surfaces,
Right.
for example. So I would give it a C minus. C. What did I say? C plus?
C, yeah.
C. I would say C.
Okay.
For manufacturing capability.
Okay. That's pretty fair. Wow, we actually went through pretty much every popular car brand. That was impressive.
Almost all the brands, yeah, except for Chinese brands, which I can't talk about
Yes.
yet.
Well, hopefully in a future video, we will be able to talk about the Chinese car brands and see how they compare. If they come to Canada, we'll see. But anyways, David, that was great. It's always a pleasure. And hopefully we'll get to make more content in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So, put on the comments what you guys think. Don't crucify me, okay, guys? I'm just being honest and straightforward because it's his channel and I can talk about whatever I want. And hopefully it's insightful and helpful, but it was fun.
Thanks, David.
All right, see you guys.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, take care.